mass coverage. And it kind of makes me chuckle because it is what the market is in Toronto. And for some, it was automatically assumed that Brendan Shanahan would be out with a first round loss. That was just widely assumed by mass media. I never believed that based on people that I talked to. And Friday, Shanahan will meet with the assembled media with Brad Treliving, the general manager, and the new boss of Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, Keith Pelly, who obviously wants to present this show of solidarity, right? Management is strong here, from the face now of MLSE to the president of hockey ops and Brendan Shanahan, and of course, your general manager. So is it as simple as saying, all right, well, you know what, Sheldon Keefe did a nice enough job, but, he does have the baggage that comes with 5+ years, right? Wasn't able to lead this team over that hump. So, we make a coaching change for the sake of change, as we alluded to earlier, or is the problem where I think most of us recognize in the construction of the roster and what they have to do in trying to move out a core piece like Marner, which is going to be incredibly difficult. And frankly, I know the agent Darren Ferris well. And the one thing I know about Ferris, Ray, when his players, his clients, are going into the final year of their contract armed with no move clauses, generally they make it to free agency where there's no trade because the player is like, nah, I'm going to control this process, and I'll control it as an unrestricted free agent when the open market opens up. So do you have a crystal ball? And if so, what do you see?
Yeah, well, of course I don't. And the three management people that are going to meet on Friday clearly tells you, they're not going out there to meet the media and then one of them's going to get fired on Saturday.
Yeah.
Like that's not happening. I think a lot of the speculation about Shanahan came with Keith Pelly being hired, and that, you've got a new umbrella boss, and, if they don't win around, that he'd probably like to, put his own stamp on things. This team doesn't work. It doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because we just watched it not work again. Dregs, we're not talking about can they be a Stanley Cup contender. We're talking about can they win a round.
Yeah.
Win a round. Like, how is that? How is that a measure of success? How low does the bar have to go? Like, they have got tremendous players. Tremendous players. And the one thing that the core four was all about was that they were going to outscore their mistakes. They were going to be a solid offensive team. You know what they lose by in the playoffs every year? Because they can't score. It doesn't, there's other factors, sure. They never score. They never score.
Yeah.
They won 2-1 in game 5 in overtime, 2-1 in game 6, and lost 2-1 in game 7.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. The record rolls around again and again. The team does not work. So I do think there's accountability across the board for it. I think Sheldon Keefe, in my opinion, coached as good a first round as he could have. He made some moves that were strategically really sharp. He got the team to play a playoff style finally, which of course he probably would have liked a lot sooner, but he got them to play this style that brought them to within an overtime goal and moving on. It feels like it's like behind the bench that they need to look in another way. But I'm Sheldon Keefe knows how to coach. And I know these people in Toronto will say, and they'll be pissed at him, and he can't do this and he can't do that. And I saw it, I watched it, and in talking to him, and for the limited times that we get to before games, I was really impressed. In this series, I really was. That all being said, this team does not work. And you're talking about a core piece. So, John Tavares just, I think he gives you what he's got.
Yeah.
And he really does. And he is open to whatever role that you need to have him to play, but he's at $11 million. And he's not going to get faster by October.
Hmm.
And so there's the first thing you've got to deal with.
Yeah.
Can there be a deal worked out somewhere? Do you just bring them back for another year and then that's going to expire that deal? Like that's a huge decision. And
Yeah.
then that gets you to Marner. And I just saw a great quote from Trevor Linden. He did an interview in Vancouver about Elias Pettersson. And he said, Pettersson's not in the fight yet. And and that's a player that looked on his heels most of that first round series against Nashville. In
Hmm.
game 6, I thought, oh, that's the first time he looked up on his toes. It was the
Yeah.
first time he looked aggressive. Marner was not in the fight against Boston. He was
Hmm.
there and he made some good plays, but you're paying him $10.5 million, and
Hmm.
he had one goal in 7 games. And in game 7, he made one move in the third period. It was spectacular. Off the sideboards, he beat DeBrusque. He came down the slot. He almost scored. That was it. I didn't hear his name again in that game. They needed
Yeah.
one more goal. They didn't need 4 goals. They needed one more.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's a monster deal to contemplate for all the hurdles that are in front of it. No move, 1 year left on his contract, his current salary already, his
Hmm.
production in the regular season, because all those things matter.
Sure.
And so he also has to decide, like, is Toronto the place for him?
Hmm.
Like, is he comfortable here? Does
It's a
he
lot of
want to stay?
noise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he said, that would be a goal, but well, what else is he going to say?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's no matter what he said yesterday, it was going to be bandied about and everybody trying to decide what the words actually mean.
Right.
So now him and Darren Ferris can figure out what their next move is and they can communicate that to the Leafs. But if you're the Leafs, are you all of a sudden going to say, well, here, let's match up your deal with Nylanders?
No.
I don't
No.
think so. It's not
No.
happening. And
No.
if it is, how many times do they need to see the same movie?
Right.
You know what? I know how some of my favorite movies end. When I watch when I watch Field of Dreams, I know Kevin Costner is going to play catch with his dad at the end. I
Yeah.
don't cry anymore. I cried the first 3 times I watched the movie. And so now I know how the movie's going to end because it happened year after year after year. And it's the same thing with the Leafs.